So I have a return guest here, Kyle Forrest. You are the future of HR leader, Deloitte.
That I am. And Joel, thanks for having me back.
Yeah.
Great to see you in person this time from an HR snack perspective and surrounded by all the energy that is here at.
Transform Conference, yes. What do you think of the conference this year?
So Transform this year came in with a theme of human plus AI equation. I think what's been really exciting about that is it acknowledges that 12 to 18 months ago, when most companies were talking about AI features, AI embedded capabilities in products, what's most important about all of that is the human side of things. And at Deloitte, our version of the math equation is humans times machines.
Yeah.
Because we want to make sure you're just not adding AI on top of existing processes. You want to understand how can AI and the humans amplify their unique capabilities to drive exponential value. We will all be mathematicians by the time the AI era is fully underway.
Yeah, they do such a great job with this conference. We were both at Unleash, now Transform back to back, and it's interesting how those two conferences are shaping their own style and what they're focusing on. But what I really wanted to talk to you about, so Deloitte, I love your human capital trends report. You have a recent one that you released. Obviously, AI is a huge theme in that. And one of the big themes in the report is this shift from thinking about productivity to then thinking about human performance
Right.
as a key metric in this AI-enabled world. That's going to be a huge shift for organizations and even the broader economy. Where do you see the sticking points with companies in that? How are organizations, how can we get around that to really be thinking about human performance instead of just productivity?
Yeah. So Joel, there's a few things that I'll share from the report that kind of tie to this topic. One is actually, this is a topic we've been digging into since our 2024 Human Capital Trends report, when we introduced what we were calling human sustainability, right? How are you as an organization designing work that will drive better outcomes for the business, but also for the humans, right?
Yeah.
And that's in a variety of different ways, right? It's not just interpret sustainability equals well-being. Now, as we have carried that forward over the last couple of years, in this report, there was a chapter that we had around what we called culture debt. And one of the interesting findings in there, so Human Capital Trends report, we had 9,000 plus respondents, 70 countries, second year of splitting it between workers and leaders with the data. And 80% of workers were concerned that their team members would be using AI in a performative fashion.
Yeah.
Meaning they might be producing things faster, more productive, if I air quotes that, but it's not actually driving better business outcomes. I know a lot of companies have been talking about the shift from outputs to outcomes, but let me give you like a real tangible example. In the spirit of companies using AI to automate certain tasks, those tasks will tend to be tasks with lower cognitive load, which is a term that many companies are starting to use and think about. So if I'm leaving the humans to deal with higher cognitive load tasks, executive decision making, how am I dealing with an emotionally charged situation with a customer or a worker, right? That will very quickly deplete a human, a leader, right? Or a frontline worker dealing with a customer in a given day. And so when you think about how you think about human performance, you as an organization need to start thinking about all aspects of things that influence performance. And what can a company do to help manage stress and cognitive loads throughout the day, throughout the week, to keep performance as high as possible if you average it out over the course of the week?
Right.
Now, counterintuitively, that might mean doing things like saying, you have a heavy cognitive load Tuesday, let's use AI to lighten your calendar on Monday. What's challenging with that is I think companies have always had the historical approach of, if you give us more capacity, we will take it and fill it with something else.
Yeah, backfill it.
But the question is, and this was in our 2025 trends report in a chapter that was like called, we're basically doing too much work about work.
Yeah.
We often fill that capacity with drudgery work, right? So how do we manage human performance in a different way going forward? I think is a huge answer that companies have to tackle.
Yeah, I think to me, people using AI at work is table stakes now, right? We're past that point of like early adoption. So like productivity is a natural byproduct of that, but that doesn't mean you're tracking towards business outcomes just because you're producing more, or you're getting things produced more efficiently. And so I do think that there's still that layer of the human enabled pieces that they can bring through quality and judgment and taste, and being able to apply that on top of those layers to really drive more towards business outcomes instead of just producing. When marketing is an easy example, like producing more content because you have the ability to, doesn't mean you're going to drive more revenue outcomes. Just means you're producing more content that may or may not have an impact on the
Yeah. Joel, in our opening to the trends report, one of the data points we shared was that 7 in 10 business leaders expect their business strategy for the next 3 years to just be fast and nimble, right? And when you think about the desire to move at speed, if that speed doesn't have direction, you're going to not perform well, right? So number one, you need to make sure you're moving in the right way. Number two, if everyone is using AI to then make decisions, how are you making sure that speed is not coming at the cost of not validating as the data, right, that was used to inform the decision? And so we actually have a chapter as well all about what are the AI implications of decision making, right? How do you design? What's the role of the humans in the decision making process? Where is AI appropriately used to accelerate? And do people borrow what Jeff Bezos always talked about as his kind of decision making framework? This, what's a one-way door versus a two-way door? A two-way door I can step through and walk back. The decision wasn't large in magnitude that you couldn't reverse it if the decision was wrong. A one-way door, once you walk through, you're done. You're through that door, right? And so I think these are the types of things that people really need to be intentional with about how they design AI-assisted decision making, all really driving to helping humans perform better to drive business outcomes.
Yeah, and that's a good segue into the other point of emphasis in the report, which is all around trust, right? Both in AI and within organizations that are deploying AI and encouraging AI adoption across their workforce. So as companies are moving faster with AI, how should HR leaders be thinking about balancing the speed of adoption? You just called it out earlier, like that's one of the huge emphasis for C-suite leaders at organizations. How should they be balancing that with building trust across the workforce and employees?
So one of the things, Joel, that we explored in the trends is essentially the old change playbook is dead. About a third of workers who responded to the survey said they experienced 15 major changes within their workforce or within their company in the last 12 months, which was up from last year, the 2025 trends report, when people said it was like 10 major changes. And these are things like executive leader changes, business transformation, technology implementation, and changes that were impacting how work is supposed to get done, role and responsibility, things along those lines, right? So if you think about that, if you're having this high volume of change in the organization and workers are being asked to adopt, they're going to have questions, right? If I adopt this tool, do I get a better bonus, a better pay? What's my career trajectory look like? And if organizations don't have answers to those questions, then all the workers will do is read the headlines. What's the risk here? At Deloitte, we have done research around the measurable factors that influence trust, right? Reliability. I do what I say I will do. Capability. I do that in a high quality fashion. Transparency. I use simple, easy to understand language to articulate the situation. And humanity. I show up with empathy to the moment and context of what's going on in the world around me. And so we think it's critically important for organizations to use those measures to build trust as they talk about AI initiatives and say, here's why we're deploying this. Here's the outcomes we expect to drive. Here's what are the implications for you and your career. Here's how we're going to help you upskill, reskill, redeploy, or whatever it may be. And by the way, here's also how we have trained the models, who had access to the data. As the models learn, who's responsible for continuing to train the models so it's delivering the right outcomes. There's a lot of questions that just, if they're given the answers, will help build trust.
Makes sense. It's a fantastic report. If you haven't caught any of those, there'll be a link in the comments when I publish this. And where else can people see you and Deloitte this year?
Yeah, don't hesitate to reach out and follow on LinkedIn, share insights from the various events that I go to. In the spring, we'll be at a couple of other technology customer events like Eightfold Cultivate, Docebo Inspire, and Visier Outsmart, and others. And then as we get back into the fall season, your HR techs and your Gartners and other things along those lines.